Good space time, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast, a source for educational insights into the Web3 universe and your connection hub to the people that turn code and dreams into decentralized applications and reality. Today, we are joined by Ivan from Cuck Validator. We talk about the similarities between philosophy and chemistry, decentralized pharmaceuticals, evolutionary medicine, and social consensus. We touch upon liquid staking monopolies, LSTs, snarks, and rollups. Finally, we dive into DAOs doing fun things, the bottlenecks in blockchains, the superpowers of modular blockchains, and the bad kid Uncle Ed. If you enjoy the Citizen Web3 podcast, please share this episode to your favorite social platform and help us spread Web3 values into the universe.
I was a really bad trader. I hacked on Geth a lot. It's Cuck, period, actually. In order for something to be provable, it has to be in protocol. Maybe now you have to do something besides have a funny meme. You have to give away your money or something. I think it's very important to minimize governance.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast. And today I have Evan with me from Cuck Validator. He's also a core dev of the Celestia. Everybody's probably by now heard of Celestia, right? We're not going to talk as much about Celestia. We'll definitely talk about modular blockchains today, but we're going to be talking even more about validating and about Evan. Evan, hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm super excited to be here. I've been a long-time listener to the podcast.
Yay!
I think for ever since I started getting into Cosmos, really.
Oh man, that's music to my ears, man. Like it is really, because when people say that, I'm always like, oh, I don't know why I do that, but it's a stupid reaction instead of like, hey, thank you. Yeah, oh. And has it taught you anything interesting?
Yeah, totally. There's been like a lot of really great episodes. The one that comes to the top of my head is the one with I believe you had Ethan Buckman on.
That was at the very beginning. Wow.
It was a long time ago.
You've been with us for a while, man.
Yeah, it was a really good episode. So I still remember that one. There's a bunch. Yeah, there's just whenever I first started getting into Cosmos, especially back then, there just wasn't like a lot of content, and I like to run a lot. So when I go for runs, I usually listen to podcasts, and it's like one of my main mechanisms of learning about some of this stuff. So you were very helpful there. So now I'm thrilled to contribute back.
Yay. And you already started to tell him a little bit about yourself, and I kind of been throwing some oil into the fire. So we have Celestia core team dev, we have a validator, we have running Cosmos and blockchain. Now, okay, all that aside for a second, what's the story of Evan and blockchains, Web3 computing, running? How does it not all aside? Sorry, how does it all come together? All those bits and puzzles about Evan. Who is Evan? What does it do? Tell us all about it, man. Would love to hear it.
Let's see. Well, I actually went to school for chemistry. So I got my degree in chemistry, loved it, loved studying anything to do with science, really. And then afterwards, though, that's sort of like a degree that you kind of have to go to grad school afterwards. It's almost like a degree in philosophy or something. I didn't want to go to grad school afterwards, so I had to go get a job. And I knew the first day that I took that job, it was managing hazardous waste. I knew the first day, I was like, there's a 0% chance that I'm doing this for the rest of my life. So I started to teach myself how to code, and which was very intuitive, especially with all of my work that I did at my undergraduate with like research and like data processing. I started to, in early 2017, I went full time, I think, I was a really bad trader, but meaning that I would have made more money if I would have just held. However, I did make enough money to stop working and quit my job, and it was a great excuse. While I didn't make as much money as I could have, I certainly learned a lot, and I hacked on Geth a lot. I spent entirely too much of my life digging through Geth's code and trying to figure out how that works. I did I got to expand on my data engineering work, and then when the time was right, I was really fortunate in that I could sort of pick the projects that I wanted to go to. I could pick the projects that I wanted to apply to. And I remember I was listening to a podcast with John Adler, and he was talking about rollups and sort of the different trade-off space there. And then at the end of the podcast, he mentioned, oh, and there's this thing called Lazy Ledger, and he's starting it with Ismail Kofi and Mustafa Al-Bassam, and he had like a brief explainer about it, and I was again running, and I like almost stopped. I was like, oh my god. I was like, this is the way. This is how you do this. This is how you actually scale blockchains. This makes so much sense. And it was like just like the right time, the right place. I got super lucky, and I applied, and they were hiring. So I got lucky, and I've been working at Celestia ever since. Or I mean, now it's called Celestia, but at the time it was the project name was called Lazy Ledger. Yeah.
Ismail, just to say for a little bit of I'm gonna obviously return it, but just a second of self-advertisement there, guys. As Evan mentioned, if you want to learn about Celestia, of course I'm gonna suggest the episode I had with Ismail. It was 2 years ago, roughly. I really suggest check it out. We talk about quite cool things, mathematics included, not just modular blockchains, but please check it out. Evan, back to you. You were saying a few things there that definitely got me like giggling. I mean, first of all, I studied philosophy. Hi. And I was just laughing, man. I was like, damn, that is brilliant, man. And man, since you studied chemistry, I have one question. When will we be able to synthesize cocaine without all those things, man? Without all the bullshit? When is it going to happen finally?
There's some really interesting work for have you if you look at he's on some other podcast, but I actually read his work before listening to the podcast. I think his name is Lee Cronin. He has some very interesting work. It's a fun rabbit hole. He has this thing that he calls a chemcomputer. And it's in a very extremely early stages yet, but it's actually semi-related to blockchains in a way, in that it can produce, and the end goal is to be able to produce any molecule under a certain molecular weight, just using some basic starting products. So the idea would be that you could make any molecule you wanted. So it's related to blockchains in the sense that it's like it has a similar anarchist bent, and that it's very empowering to people. It's instead of having a pharmacy or having these big corporations produce these drugs, you have one of these machines. It's like a library, right? And it produces, like if you need a drug, you get a prescription, but instead of getting the molecules from these big companies from God knows where, you get it down the street. So there's a really cool concept. I'm sort of a huge fan of anything to do with that sort of like anarchist bent. Not like, yeah, just anything that empowers people is a good thing.
While we're on that subject, I know maybe was not expected, but I always say, like conversations on our podcast, they always go random. And while we're on the subject, I'm curious, what's your opinion then on the most serious topic? At least, like for me, it's always been something that time after time, year after year, it gets me out a couple of times per year, antibiotics, and like the whole point that if those are pretty much one of the only compounds we know that can definitely save lives, and we're 100% certain about it, and it's under so much bureaucratical laws in every single country around the world, apart from not including like a couple of still developing countries. I mean, isn't that kind of like, I don't know, it just blows my mind every time that I have to deal with it, that this thing that can save your life, you need the permission to buy it. and it's like
I can see your frustration there. In this specific case, I think like having prescriptions is good, just because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to debug complex systems, and our bodies are very complex systems. So I think we tend to go with the tried and true approach of having to be extremely conservative, go to a doctor that studies from a book, doesn't play things by ear. They're like very rigorous in how they do these things, because if you take one wrong drug, you can have like a serious side effect for the rest of your life. And some of these antibiotics do have some of those side effects. And I think the other reason for that is like I also am a huge fan of evolution, and evolutionary medicine is also a new fun topic that people are starting to talk about. But bacteria tend to, there's plenty of bacteria now in the world that are entirely new species. They've never existed before humans. And for example, like ones that like eat the byproduct of a jet fuel in the ocean or something. Not jet fuel, diesel, something that goes in cruise ships. Those have never existed before, but they only eat this one thing. And this exists with antibiotics as well. It's like there's you can go find these genes in bacteria that can essentially like hack their way past these antibiotics. And now you can find these genes in almost any bacteria strain. Whereas like in the 60s, that was not the case. So it's like the more antibiotic usage we have, the worse it is for like the public, because now we have these antibiotic strain or these antibiotic resistant bacteria that can do a hell of a lot of damage. Europe is actually really good about and really like stringent upon this, where like they I've had some Europeans make fun of like Americans just because we go to the doctor and they just kind of hand out antibiotics like candy. Yeah.
I honestly think it's you know what I hear definitely agree with you from the point perspective of like, yeah, you know, I was reading yesterday, like last night, you know, one of those I'm gonna go to sleep early and then at 4 a.m. you're still reading how they took in 1538 whatever, you know, the temple of whatever in whatever country. And actually, yeah, I was reading one of those things yesterday. There was the story of this guy who was starting in America football athlete, like in college, and he was very good. And he went drinking with his friends, and they made him a bet that he would eat a snail. It was a random snail, and he eat the snail.
Oh no!
And he goes to coma for like 400 days, and then after 8 years he dies. But now the question is, the thing is, like, there is no statistics, of course, there is no. But I'm sure that the amount of stories of people who eat random snails or drink by jet, you know, whatever diesel fuel, are a lot less than the amount of people who should have access to antibiotics, but because of bureaucracy don't have access to that. And I guess that is the point where I'm trying to come from. But I definitely agree with what you say, that it has to be in a responsible manner. The question is, you know, who decides that responsibility for us? And sometimes it's a bit of a like, I mean, I don't know. Do you see what I'm getting at? This is the boom that I have from that. But yeah. But anyways,
yeah, I tend to defer to maybe this is just because we work in blockchains too much, but like social consensus. Like if you could reach some social consensus somehow on what is the standard practice instead of relying on a committee or something.
Absolutely.
I feel like that would be rather difficult to do, but maybe somehow.
I mean, I know, again, we're going like very philosophical here, but I'm gonna like now narrow it down and get it to you, of course, and to your validator. But you know, just like one last thought on that is that, you know, you're right. It's very difficult to get. Usually we say those things in the end. I say those things in the end, but you're right. It's very difficult to get a consensus. But the thing is that we live in the society that we live in today, and for the past, you know, let's say 5,000-10,000 years, like the modern society where consensus plays a major role, or at least so we know of it, hasn't really been working. So if what I'm saying is, yeah, maybe it's going to be difficult getting consensus for things like what medication we should be taking or whatever, social consensus or not taking. But if it's different from today and it's going to fix anything, you know, then maybe we should try it. But again, this is like super philosophical, and of course we can dedicate a whole topic to it. But I want to like narrow the conversation more to you and talk a little bit about, first of all, about your validator. Come on, let's start with the naming, man. Let's start with the naming. Let's get this out of the blue. Tell me about it. Tell us about it.
Okay, so the name of my validator is Cuck. So it's Cuck period actually. But if you want to go delegate, I'm only operating on Celestia at the moment. I used to run a validator on Osmosis. It was called Uncle Ed. I no longer run it. Someone else does.
Why?
It was a bad kid. The bad kid Uncle Ed. I just stopped being I was I guess a little bit bored with running that validator. So I decided to run one on Celestia instead and handed it over to the person who was working with me on that.
In a sense, though, you are actually pretty much a primary target audience, in my opinion, at least for this podcast, because you are exactly a builder who
Mm-hmm.
participates. So first of all, you're a core dev, and two, you run a validator, and you run one. And this is interesting because one of the goals when launching this podcast, it wasn't validators at the beginning. It was more like builders, and then we started to shift because, well, also the focus over the past 4 years shifted from to validators a lot, in my opinion, in the blockchain world, and they became very central. But I really want to dig a little bit into your head and try to understand what causes somebody who's already working inside of blockchain space, and because I'm going to take another step back here. Usually, people are afraid not having stability. And I'm sure that you have seen this, where you talk to your friends who work 9 to 5 jobs, come work from house. They even though sometimes it's more money, less hours, they'll probably never do it. So the question to you is here. You're working as a developer for a project. I mean, maybe when you were launching your validator, you didn't know what Celestia was going to be like. You still didn't understand, let's say, how big it was going to be. Regardless, you're having some stability, and then suddenly you like you launch in validator, and it takes, regardless of whether you rely on it financially or not, it's nervous. It's a nervous thing. It can fall. You can go slashed. You have to take care of things. You have to take care of the upgrades, updates. Even if it's one validator, you still have to figure out how to put the proper architecture together, even if you know how to do it. So why? So the
Yeah, that
question is
is
why?
true. But so as a core dev, most of my job is debugging things like Comet. So I spend a lot of time. I'm very familiar with Comet and the application that powers Celestia. So and I already have to pay attention to upgrades because usually after we reach social consensus, I'm helping to implement some of those upgrades. So I tend to have like a lot of Celestia specific knowledge there. So and Comet specific as well. So because of that, running a validator for me is a very minor task. It's something really small, and it gives me a chance to make a meme. So like the name of the validator is purposefully to be sort of funny and a bit ironic, right? It's cuck, period. But the reason for that is because like one of the superpowers that Celestia gives you is the ability to verify the chain in a very cheap way, right? This is the entire concept of modular. It's modular because you can use a light client to verify the other chains. Now I no longer have to trust this committee, and you can unlock a lot of superpowers there. And like since a light client is doing the verification, right, it doesn't have to trust the committee. The committee can't change anything or do any bad things. So the light client is cucking the validator. That's where like the name comes from, and you can expand it further. So it's not just like with Celestia, we do eventually we'll have all of our block validity rules have some sort of proving system. So things like erasure encoding or things like how the block is organized, all of that will be provable. So we have like fraud proofs for these things at the moment. Potentially in the future, we could use something like validity proofs, like a snark. And again, that's like the main reason that the driving technology behind what makes something modular is using this light client, using a trust minimized light client. And you can expand this to more and more things like MEV as well. So this actually originated, I had a quick, very short talk at the Modular Summit where I talk about how if we make the validator set, or if we change the consensus algorithm slightly so that it's censorship resistant per block, then you unlock this powerful thing where now rollups you can just be a based rollup, which means you don't have a sequencer set or anything. You just rely on the validator set of the L1, and you inherit all the decentralization properties, and you get to capture your own MEV. And this is sort of like the key thing. The blocker, in my opinion, for things like the based rollups, which are essentially like the original vision of lazy ledger in many ways, is that they can't really capture their MEV. All the MEV is essentially captured by not even just the chain, the L1, but the proposer, the validators of the L1. So if we get a bit clever though, again, like with this whole censorship resistance scheme, we can get around that, and we can make validators cucks because we don't want them to be able to capture the MEV. If it's the rollup's decision. If the rollup wants to allow the validator to capture MEV, they can do it. but they should also have a way around it. And that's what I think we're sort of leaning towards. I've heard like a lot of support in the community for ideas around things like this. To be clear, it's not implemented yet, but this is where that name comes from. It's like this concept in Celestia of these light clients, where when you verify something, power changes hands. Now it's in the light client's power, right? They get to choose the rules by upgrading their binaries, since they're verifying everything, right? Trust, don't verify.
I like the fact
Or
particularly
don't
that
verify, trust. Wait, no, don't trust, verify. Yeah, I had it right.
don't trust, verify. You had it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even trust but verify.
I see. Yes,
You
that
can
works
go
as well.
you can even go shorter. I love the fact though that even though you're a core developer, you were in your explanation routing for not hard coding into rollups the ability to live up to them, what to do with the MEV, and that's in my opinion very important. I had
Mm-hmm.
a guest on. His name is Derek. He's an author of Liberty Solution a few weeks ago, and we were discussing. He's not into. He's into crypto. He's into blockchains, but he's an author, of an anarchist. And he asked me like, why me? Why? And I said, well, I think it's important that those values that are there, that people don't forget, who build the Web3 world, that build the Web3 society, aren't forgetting those things. And I think an example of what you're saying, not having rollups, well, having them to decide for themselves, okay, we need that ability for sure. We want to capture that, or we don't want to capture it, but it has to be them that decides that, okay? Because they, for all they know, they can be proof of authority. They can be, I don't know, having one single node over there, and that's their choice. And if everybody's happy with it, then we should also be happy with it. If at least we can verify the information, I guess, if they want to connect to the major market. Again, so many assumptions, but again, I think it's important. And that what's your current, like Evan, not Evan, that is a core dev. Okay, yeah, Evan is always going to be, or at least for now, a core dev for Celestia. But what's Evan's opinion on a very touchy topic? And I'm asking you because, again, you have the both hats on, validators and governance. Now, there is this one part of people who say that validators shouldn't even participate in governance. Those are centralized entities. Those entities have only self-interest. They bear nothing but self-interest, and which is true. Well, it should be accounts that, or the other accounts. Okay, technically that's not correct, but you understand what I mean. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so governance can be very useful, except for at the time we're kind of stuck with token voting, which I think is sort of fundamentally flawed. It's not a very good way of deciding things, and I mean, in my opinion, it feels a lot like what we did before Web3, like in Web2. I mean, it feels like like shareholders in a public company sort of voting for something, and then instead of having a board, a council or something, you have a set of validators. It feels weird. It feels like we would make the same mistakes as before, and it feels like we have such a blockchains are so powerful, right? Because of their ability to harness social consensus. Like that's the novelty here, is being able to verify something, which allows us to reach social consensus by changing how we verify something. It's like that's a crazy powerful property. So personally, I'm way more interested in that, which means no governance, which means that means light clients decide how these things are. So like in the future, it's entirely feasible that like the banking system kind of sucks or something happens. Well, we update the apps on our phone. That's how we fix that. Um, assuming there's a fix for something like that. But the concept is kind of crazy, right? The concept is crazy that you can have some forks like this. You can reach social consensus by people choosing for themselves, and that just seems like why are we even messing with the rest of this stuff at the moment? It seems kind of crazy to. I kind of get it. I understand again. Like it's very useful to change some things very fast without actually having to have a hard fork. But at the same time, if you can limit it, so maybe I'm just biased. Mustafa has a really great post describing some of the like the key properties or key things that Celestia should strive for. And one of them is like a minimal amount of governance. And that I firmly agree with that. It's when systems, especially like a system like Celestia, I think it's very important to minimize governance. You don't want token holders to have the final say in things. The final say only comes to light clients.
Now, allow me to play a little. I actually agree with you mostly, but I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate. Well, not little, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because there is another side that I wouldn't be me if I did mention that side, even though I agree with most of what you say. But the most terrible word to start a sentence, right? But yeah, but no, but seriously, right? So okay, everything you said, let's put this on one side of the scale. Now, on the other side of the scale, again, devil's advocate here, but I really want to know your opinion. We have what we see in sociological consensus historically, and that is a problem, a lack of interest from anybody to participate in any type of voting or anything because it doesn't benefit me directly. So why do I care who to vote for? Why do I care what school is going to be built? Why do I care where to spend the tax money? Why do I care where to do anything? Because I know it's going to be stolen. I know my opinion isn't going to count, and I know I will not be rewarded for participating. Now, blockchain ironically offers solution for almost all three of those, apart from the, actually directly stealing the money by the builders or by the end. But anyways, we can still somehow, the material while building the school or whatever, it's hard to be able to count every single bolt or whatever. But assuming that aside for a second, still blockchain does reward the user for participating in any voting system, and it does actually introduce the transparency. So, okay, I once again, I actually agree with you, and I'm actually on the side that I would be anti-governance, but yet it seems that the reward for participation in governance offers a magical solution for what we as a society have been lacking so long. How do we play around that, if it's a thing at all, in your opinion?
So how do they reward people for voting?
Participation, just participation. And again, voting here is an example for participation. But let's say if I'm a member of a society, and for, like, let's say, digital nation, whatever the digital nation does, whether it's an application or whether it's a data availability layer, or whether it's a protocol for smart contracts, or whether it's an application for flight, I don't know, whatever, it rewards me for being part of that application, which includes governance, because being a part of something has to make me, at least in today's semantics, I don't know what other word even I can use to avoid the word governance here. So yeah, my question is, like, I'm confused because I'm kind of agreeing with you. Yeah, governance can be a root of many evil things. On the other side, not rewarding participation of subjects in the life of the whatever it is, if there directly are entities that are involved, it obviously leads us to today's society where people lose interest in being part of the city, the politics, the whatever. So how do we, like, kill both rabbits at the same time?
Well, this might be a cop out, but I'm not sure I know the answer to that question.
Of course, it's a
It's a
philosophical
very,
debate.
it's a very difficult problem. I do think that there is some potential in with maybe it's just with light clients. You can how you access the system itself is via light client. So to participate in a system is to use a light client. And in order to use a light client, you have to pick a version, right? So you have to pick some set of rules that mean something to you. So that could just be the rules that everyone else picks. And you sort of leave this social consensus process to its own being, which is completely arbitrary. Maybe Taylor Swift goes on a commercial and tells you to use this version of the app or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but however that process does work, it could work. I think it's at least interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Everything has trade-offs. There's never going to be the answer to that problem is that there might never be an answer.
Of course, I agree. I completely agree. I'm just gonna say I don't watch Super Bowl, but Taylor Swift sounds like a very fast footballer. No, I'm joking. This was a very stupid meme I saw the other day on Twitter. Man, what's your opinion in general? While we're talking still about governance validators. I mean, you have run a validator, like you said, on Osmosis, and then you delegated it or shared it or gave it whatever to somebody else. It's not run by you anymore, and then now you're running a validator on Celestia. Like, what has been, without going into the governance like discussion and what we just done now, what has been your experience? Would you generally say to people, hey, yeah, you should go run validators. It will, benefit you. It will not benefit you. I mean, it's easy, like you said. I don't know. Would you advise it to people? Is it something you think people should do?
For some people, definitely, yeah, because a lot of people like to learn in a very hands-on way, and it's just easier for them to use the software itself in order to learn from it. So even if you're just running a little tiny validator on a testnet somewhere, if that's how you learn, or if that's just something that you felt drawn to, then I would definitely recommend it. It's a ton of fun, especially on a testnet where things are lower stake. If you want to, if that's something that you find out that you like or that you just happen to know a lot about, then yeah, running on a real network is also fun. It feels good to contribute, and I'm at least like Tenderman always makes the assumption that there's 1/3 honest validators. Well, I'm a portion of that 1/3. That feels good.
Yay. I understand what you mean. What about, the never ending question? I mean, it's a question that is on top, but, people who started, where do I get tokens? That's their first question. And again, let's play. I'm gonna listen. I want your answers here. I want to get into your head. Like, okay,
Yeah.
where do I get tokens?
Well, I think you should create your own chain. Then
Okay.
you can
But I
make
want
as
to
many as
validate
you want at that
Celestia.
point.
But I want to validate Celestia. I want to
Ah,
validate Celestia. I want to validate Celestia. I don't know what I'm doing, but I've seen a video on YouTube from a cool guy. His name is Bob. And Bob told me that we all must validate Celestia. It seems it's something I can do. I have some experience. Where do I get tokens?
well, you have to get delegations. So in order to get delegations, you have to do some sort of, usually some sort of meme. So I don't just mean like a funny meme or something. Like the meme is an idea that's spreadable, right? This is another word might be marketing, right? You have to convince people to delegate to you, and that's like a very difficult process. Um, I don't understand. I'm not a good marketer.
Nah,
Like
neither am I.
sometimes I occasionally I have a funny meme about making validators cucks, and that's about it. And it seems to work okay. But yeah. And you know what else happened with that validator is that I'm giving all the money away. Like so, all like 100% of the revenue at the moment. I will always give away 100% of the profits. At the moment, I'm giving 100% of the revenue to open source software and open source open source research for anything that cucks committees or validators. So that also helps. If you're going to lose 5%, right? That's 5% is usually the minimum for these chains for the commission. Then it might as well go towards something like a cause that you appreciate. And because I already know how to like run a validator, and I work with the software every day, then it's no big deal for me. I'm running one chain. It's totally fine. Um, I'll eat that cost. It's totally worth it. Just for the meme alone, it's funny. Like that's totally worth it.
I like how you say you're a bad marketer and yet you have just gave people, I think, a great idea to if they catching on to what you were saying between the lines. I think it's a very great point there, and to highlight it, find something that you want to contribute towards and make it into your marketing program. But do you have do you think it, again, it sounds like a typical question, but I think, again, because you're a builder, I think it's something that's important to ask you. Um, Like, I had a lot of people come onto the show, and I'm not talking about the lately, I'm talking about before, like 2, 3 years ago, especially, who I would say to, man, why don't you validate? Like, you've been talking about so much contributing to these ecosystems. Why don't you run a validator? And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And some of them do now, and some of them became very big validators. There are some names out there that are top proof of stake validators these days. So question to you is, you say, okay, I'm doing it, I'm giving the money away to the research, but wouldn't you be able to do a lot more research if you had, like, let's say 10 validators, not on Celestia, but running across different modular blockchain, let's say Dimension, Celestia, I don't know, Syscoin, what else counts as rollups there these days, whatever, I don't know, whatever, and you would gather a huge I'm of course I don't know, I'm making this up, but question is, do you want to grow that if it's working right now? Do you want to, like, make that whatever is working with the one validator into a system where you, I don't know, organize funds, sponsor grants, sponsor research?
It's already enough work as is, so I don't think I would. Just my gut feeling. If someone else like approached me and they were interested in sort of helping me out, and I trusted them, then maybe. And since this is like sort of my reputation, I would have to make sure that everything's done very well and above board. And I also just feel more comfortable running only one on Celestia just because I work on that software every day. I debug it all the time. If something goes wrong, it's like I know I usually can figure out what's going wrong. So with other chains, I don't have that guarantee. So at that point, I'm not sure that I could contribute in the same ways.
I understand.
So it might just not be worth it. But I am, for what it's worth, I am with at least one other Celestia validator and probably more. We're starting something called the League of Cucks. So what this actually does at the moment is a bit undefined, but essentially the way to join the League of Cucks is you have to give your commission over you have to give permission for an ICA account on Celestia to be able to withdraw your commission from your validator. So you're essentially giving up you're giving up your rights to the commission. And now this ICA account, which you can think of it as, right now it's just a separate Tendermint chain, but it essentially is a DAO and controls these funds. And we want to do a lot of fun things besides just giving out grants. So on that chain, I said I don't like governance, but at the same time, it is sometimes very useful. If you're just trying to have, again, it can be very useful. You can just apply to have a community spend on this new chain, right? It's just a normal Cosmos SDK chain, and people will vote, and now you can get your funds on your. So this is also just a way for me to also stop managing this as much. Like I want to decentralize it a bit. I don't want it just to be me. And then another thing that we're going to do. I wrote a forum posts 2 weeks ago, a week ago, I'm not sure, about breaking, or not breaking, but defending against liquid staking monopolies. So this is another thing. I tend not to like monopolies. So with this, essentially it defines adding two things. One of those things is the ability to define your own liquid staking token on all of these native chains. So this would include Celestia. So if this ever gets adopted, one of the things that the League of Cucks will do is they will create their own LST. And they will set the commission for that LST to 100%. So the purpose isn't so that you use this LST. The purpose is so that you fork it, because this whole concept of defending against LST monopolies is having the ability to fork an LST. If you can fork it and instantly convert from one LST to the next, now you have a very powerful tool, because now you're sort of limiting the amount of damage, or reducing, not limiting, reducing the amount of damage that an LST monopoly can do. Because usually monopolies, they're fully capable, right, of extracting all of this value. And one of the things that if they tend to extract a lot of value, now you can fork them, convert to your own, capture that value for yourself. Or if they don't capture value, then that's also a win. You probably don't have as much incentive to fork them, but at least they're not capturing a lot of value, which is a win for users and light clients.
It's actually one of there's two big topics there. There is one topic that with of course LSTs and LSDs, whatever people prefer to call them. Um, I had a big interest in when we used to do around the IBC round tables, the nights of the IBC table. We used to have like and also we had actually I don't remember, was it somebody? No, there was one where there was somebody from Celestia, but this was a different one for the LSDs, and we had all the guys from Persistence, from Light of Finance, from who else was it? Stride, and then there was more. There was more. I forgot already who it was. Everyone, and there was one question that I asked them, all of them, and was about the dangers of printing, inflation into inflation, and about. So I totally understand what you're talking about by saying that by forking it, you would actually be saving and be introducing minimizing the damage that potentially this could be doing to the economics, and actually taking it somewhere else, and exploring new opportunities. Yeah, and the second one, the topic actually went out of my head while I was talking about that, but it was in the same subject. I want to know also your opinion about another thing which involves, again, both sides of the medal, and usually we ask either validators how they select chains, or I ask sometimes people who build projects how they select validators. Now, again, having touched the side of two, it's a topic that confuses a lot of people. Sometimes people run the validator, and it's important. And I say why, because it might be very on the top, but a lot of people who go and try to become validators, they, you were talking about decentralizing your validator, and that is like the next step. That is like the final frontier, so to speak, giving away, the rights to withdraw commission, or I don't know, having your own DAOs around it or whatever. That was the second topic. There we go. But, with that said, people don't get to that stage because they get lost. There is like a validator school, there is other schools, and people go there, they try, they don't succeed. Foundations don't want to talk to them. Nobody wants to delegate to them, and they get lost. And like you said, okay, go find marketing, go and find mem. Okay, cool. Yet, as somebody who is a core dev and a validator, what is, at least in your personal opinion, what should a validator do apart from creating memes to be noticed by a foundation, to be noticed by core members of teams of the chain they are validating, in order to attract the attention of the core team to their validator, and to help them to progress?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. I think one good way is to find a way to contribute, however that is. Maybe it's something like what you do with your podcast and you're a validator, right? If I was delegating to a new chain and I see that your podcast is validator is somewhere in the validator set, I would delegate to that because that's a cause that I appreciate. Where um, because you've already contributed. So that's at least what I look for when I delegate is this person contributing in some way? And I don't want to delegate to someone like a validator that's like a corporate validator that they span so many different chains. They don't care, or it's difficult to make the argument that they really care when they're like on, like they have, if you go to their page, it's like this giant list of chains. It's like every chains you've never heard of, and so I understand that it's a business and that's what they have to do. But if I find a validator that's like very artisanal, very, very, very mission driven, very, very focused on something, then that at least speaks to me. But I can't, everyone's different. Some people, what was the one validator in osmosis? Was it Wasmington or something? I had no clue what this one was, but it was super high. It was like, it had tons of voting power. Yeah, so there's sometimes it's just like a funny meme, I guess, but maybe those days are over. Maybe now you have to do something besides have a funny meme. You have to give away your money or something. I'm not sure.
Well, my team is gonna love me for this because I usually don't do this, but since we're on the topic, guys, delegate to Citizen Web3. No, I'm joking. Delegate to any network to people that you think that contribute to it. And if you think Citizen Web3 is contributing on Celestia, you can go to the inactive set and delegate to us. But be aware that it's an inactive set. By the way, this is another interesting question. We are actually building a validator tool, and we can talk about it in a different conversation, I guess, not because it's not the point of it here. But what I want to ask you is that, do you think, because I know that one of the topics is censorship resistance, and I know you are a very important topic for you. And, like monopolies, governments, I know that I've seen some tweets from you on that. And maybe directly, it doesn't seem like it, but in my opinion, Explorers, wallets, they are the adoption tool, because this is what the end user uses. This is what is going to, if anything is going to get that, NFTs, whatever, explorers, wallets, again, NFTs need explorers and wallets. This is where the adoption will come from. Now, it seems that the goal of removing censorship, of removing things, because we still have to use those tools, even though they're Web2. Today, for example, you go to most of these tools and you cannot delegate to a validator outside the active set. You cannot even sometimes see the whole fact that the validators outside the active sets are called inactive is by default wrong, because they are not inactive. Sometimes they are active, and the validator in the active set can actually be inactive. We just don't know that because of the window that is open. Anyways, what's your opinion here as to how much damage, if any, explorers and wallets are causing by centralizing users to delegate to the active set? And can it be solved somehow at all by builders out there?
For this specific problem, I actually think that we should enable inflation to go to validators outside of the active set. So even if you're not in the active set, like if the active set is 100, then the top 150 get inflation, because then those validators are still doing something. They're just sitting there waiting just in case they're needed, which is an incredibly valuable service, and you don't want to dissuade that at all. So that's for that specific topic. I'm not super aware of like all the censorship that goes on in other systems. However, I do think moving things more and more to locally run things helps. So something like with the Uniswap API, or Osmosis has their own API that you can run locally. Things like that are really good, and I think eventually we'll push more and more in that direction, including things like light clients. So at the moment, like we use Infura for a lot if you use Ethereum, which is rather unfortunate. It's not that we don't like Infura, we don't trust Infura. I'm sure they're great people. However, it's just the fact that kind of defeats the purpose to some extent. So what we're working on, at least with Celestia, the light clients are first-class citizens of the network. So that means that they have access to be able to submit transactions, make queries, a very large set of things. So in theory, right, I'm just running a light client. It's verifying the chain for me. It's providing me access to that chain. And then at that point, I'm just downloading like from IPFS or something, from some signed, JavaScript, something, whatever web front end that is operating for me, so that I can click on things, right? And I don't have to like use a CLI to create transactions. But pushing that direction is certainly, I think the correct decision. And building systems that can manage that. I mean, it's not easy, but it's definitely worthwhile in my opinion. So that's something that I think we're definitely headed in the right direction for. We're not there yet, but we'll get there.
I love the fact that your approach is like a mathematical approach, rather than straight away trying to find the social approach of, okay, how do we solve this? Well, we solve this by going to the chain. We solve this by going to the core of the problem. I like that. It's
yeah. We have to make it easy. If it's easy, then it's at least doable.
I like it.
Doesn't mean it will happen, but
man, I think dividing the inflation between entities with interest in that, because today most of the chains divide the inflation between two entities, sometimes between three. Sometimes you get developers that use, gas usage, right, in the equation, but there are way more entities that use the chain and the network and that directly make it healthier. So I definitely agree that is probably the core solution there. I know that we kind of like, yeah, it's always like that. You run out of time when you have a good conversation. Though I wanna probably I wanna kind of go to the blitz to do, but I still, to be honest, I like half of the question. It's one of I don't. It doesn't happen very often. But out of the questions I was going to ask you, I'm looking here to the right because I'm looking at the list. I didn't ask half, and usually I do to go to the quota. So I'm a bit confused. It was like, carry on asking you questions. Like, okay,
we got a little distracted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
No,
man. I'm sorry.
it's fine. It was a good conversation. Well, I have some time. If you have some extra time to ask some of these questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do definitely wanna ask you about modular blockchains and about your general. I mean, again, because there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and summarize it into kind of like a more abstract one thing. And here we go. I'm going to try. I don't know how much you follow Vitalik, but I have the assumptions that you do follow Vitalik, considering the things you say. And previously talking to Mustafa, to Ismail, I know that they are not narrow-minded guys who are like, oh my God, I'm going to only do my thing, and all the other developers are bad, and I'm not going to read what they say. So again, maybe more of an abstract kind of sentence. I don't know how much listeners out there follow Vitalik, and read. And he writes a lot about modular blockchains, and there is a lot of people in the Cosmos ecosystem and the Ethereum ecosystem and a lot of other ecosystems who talk about the development of blockchains and how will it develop, whether it will go modular, whether there is other bottlenecks that have to be taken care of, whether scalability is not the only bottleneck, whether, distribution is the other one, or maybe whatever. What's your opinion as from a man who's in the middle of that? Because you already mentioned some of the benefits of what modular blockchains can bring in the beginning to blockchain. But if from a perspective of maybe a self-researcher, I know you're not a researcher, but a person who has done so much work, obviously has researched things and obviously does research things, and you kind of made it obvious between the lines there. From that perspective, where are we? And I know it's a bit of a stupid question, but like, how is it going to evolve? What's the evolution process for blockchains will look like over the next, I don't know, pick your own time frame, pick your own answer. I want to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, so long run, I think it's almost inevitable that we will get to many countless cute and tiny blockchains, and all of these blockchains you can sort of prove using a snark, and then you can sort of aggregate those proofs up and do whatever you see fit with those proofs. You can bridge between these cute and tiny chains. You can do whatever. That's at least my opinion. Some of the marketing around integrated blockchains or modular blockchains or whatever, they are trying to inform. Like they're trying to show you something that's really truly novel about these systems. But if you really just look at the fundamental thing, all of these things really are just blockchains. And while there are some trade-offs, most of the trade-offs tend to be quite small. And you can see things like the most important thing is like, how do I verify these blockchains? Like, how do I verify the block validity rules of these blockchains? What are the security assumptions? And how much does it cost to attack? So like there is like a very wide trade-off space. But fundamentally, that's what these all are. Like a rollup is just a blockchain. We gave it a fancy name, but it's just a blockchain. Like it has a funny mechanism for consensus that relies on a different chain, which is kind of cool. And right there's trade-offs there. So fundamentally, if anyone really is interested in these things, I highly encourage you just to go very low level and skip if some of the jargon or wording maybe bothers you and you or you're feeling like a bit tribal on something. I really encourage you to just go like really deep into the code, figure out how these things work. And with ChatGPT, that's easier than ever. So you can actually do this, and you don't have to be able to read code. You can sort of have ChatGPT guide you through some of this stuff and explain some of these things. Might not always be right, but it'll get close enough. And yeah, so I think where blockchains are headed is, I mean, modular blockchains just make a lot of sense from a security point of view, right? Like relying on a validator set for all of these chains is inherently not economically viable. It just isn't. And we can rehypothecate as much as we want, meaning like restake or do something, but that also has risks. Where and like again, like the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is like what the Bitcoin people say, right? Don't trust, verify, because it has this very special property, right? That's the superpower of these light clients. So we kind of have to ask ourselves, how do we actually want to secure the chain? How do we actually want to change the world for the better? And if we ask ourselves that, then I think it becomes clear. It's like we have to be able to verify these things. And that's difficult. It's much easier, it's much faster just to trust a committee. But if we actually want to improve things, I think fundamentally we have to go this like slightly more difficult route of making these blockchains that are incredibly easy to verify. And so whatever that is, I'm not sure if that's a direction at all, but just modular, integrated, I don't care. What I do care, I do definitively agree with build whatever. I strongly like just agree with that statement, because it really doesn't matter. It just matters that you're protecting your users. You're giving your light clients sovereignty over how they determine like the rules of the chain. That's the most important thing, at least to me. So anything in that direction, I'll be happy. I'm definitely going in that direction. So kind of doesn't matter if other people don't. All the projects that I work on will.
Can you add to this one last thing, because it's important? Do things in your opinion have to happen? All of that, does it have to happen on chain or off chain? It can happen off chain.
In order for something to be provable, it has to be in protocol. So there's certain things that can't be in protocol. But yeah, if you want something to be verifiable, then it has to be in protocol.
Okay. It's an important. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna put a full stop there, because it's a crazy heavily topic to discuss, and I know I can see the reaction of like, it has to be on protocol. I get it, but it's interesting. It's interesting, and it's very complex when we get into that of how many aspects and pillars and God knows what else you have to like try to keep in mind just to understand that it's just not possible today. But like, okay, let's move to the blitz on that pretty note. No, but things are good. Things are good. I just want to say that the things are good, and I'm glad to hear that you say now that people can go and use ChatGPT to understand, because like 5-6 years ago, people didn't have that opportunity unless you were a developer. You had to either really go study a script or something else if you want to understand Bitcoin, for example, right? Or Gore if you want to understand Cosmos or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it becoming easier and easier for people to try and understand what actually going on without having to the necessity to verify, to trust somebody else to verify it for themselves. With that, let's get to the blitz. So 5 questions, very easy. Give me one song or movie or book that keeps on, popping up in Evan's life and having some kind of influence on Evan's life every now and again.
Oh man, there's a lot. I really like to listen to music. I'm trying to go through my phone right now. Let's see. Lately I've been trying to learn Spanish. So I've been listening to a lot of like cheesy Spanish pop. So there's this really cheesy song by, well, I think it's cheesy, by Julieta Venegas. I think I'm saying her name right. It's called Con Limón y Sal, so with lemon and salt. So it's a very catchy song. If you're, I don't quite understand all the words yet, but I'm learning. So that's a fun one.
Como mal sal. I like it. No, I'm saying it in the Portuguese way. I live in on Madeira, which belongs to Portugal. So I'm kind of learning Portuguese over the last few years. So whenever I hear Spanish, I'm always like, I used to study also Spanish, and Portuguese confused the hell out of me. But now I actually understand Portuguese more and not Spanish. So when I hear, I'm translating everything to the Portuguese pronunciation. What about one direction of technology? For example, I'm going to give you an example: machine learning or blockchain. Also, is modular blockchains. That's another direction of so not a project, but a technological direction that you think is exciting.
Sometimes I have a lot of FOMO for biotech. There's just so much in there. I like I said, I went to school for chemistry and biology, so it's just always near and dear to my heart. So you see something on Twitter and you get nerd sniped because it's just so interesting. It's entirely different types of systems, right? And there's incredibly interesting. There's so much to do with biotech. It's kind of crazy. But if I had to pick one, we were talking about antibiotics. So a fun new, well, it's not even new. It's old. It's ancient. But it's using viruses, so macrophages, to attack bacteria. And we also mentioned evolutionary medicine, which is sort of a new and upcoming field. And they essentially use things like viruses or antibiotics or random tools, sometimes even machine learning as well. And they sort of like, they're playing chess with a tumor or playing chess with bacteria and a specific infection even. So it's like a very personalized healthcare. It's extremely interesting because these problems are getting that complex, right? With cancer tumors and with antibiotic resistant bacteria, it's getting to the point where you almost have to use a machine learning algorithm to pick specific drugs and antibiotics and these macrophages, and then you can corner the bacteria. There's nowhere for it to move in an evolutionary direction. It's sort of at a dead end, and you win at that point. Like you can completely eradicate an infection if you can have that much control over it. So that's like a really exciting field. We're sort of being pushed into it, so it's not exciting that we have these antibiotic resistant bacteria. That's very scary. But the concept of being able to outsmart one and to outsmart like how bacteria evolve itself, that is super interesting.
That is a crazy interesting topic in my opinion, and I don't know if we're probably gonna drop, because we usually drop the links to what the guest says, but we're gonna try and find a link, like a general link to drop, so if somebody's interested can go and
I can send you a paper. There's a really good paper of they tried this macrophage treatment for someone who had an infection in their heart. So actually a bacterial infection in the heart that was antibiotic resistant from surgery. So they had surgery on something else. The bacteria traveled and stayed in their heart. Well, that's obviously a terrible place for an infection, but they couldn't get rid of it. So the patient unfortunately had other heart problems. They had to do an open heart surgery. And as part of the treatment, because it's antibiotic resistant, they couldn't apply antibiotics. They applied a different antibiotic and a macrophage. And they actually got rid of the heart infection. It was an incredibly rare case, but it was really cool. Yeah. And people in Eastern Europe have been doing macrophage therapy for
really,
I don't even know how long, a very long time. Yeah, that's why I said it's not even new. But the science behind it is really fun. Yeah.
If you can send the link to the paper, I love reading paper like that personally, and I'm sure there will be at least a couple of people that listening to this that be like, oh, I want to read that too. We'll definitely include it. If you cannot find it on hand, we will definitely find it. Next one. Give me this is a question that sometimes is very difficult to answer, but it's easy as well. A blockchain project that you think is interesting. But don't say Celestia, Cosmos, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Like you can, of course, if you want to, you can. But something that is like maybe in the model of.
Oh, my favorite is Penumbra.
Whoa, what is that? I don't even know that, man. And I consider
Penumbra.
How do I? I'm curious. I never.
This is the project. I think Henry de Valent started. It's a privacy DEX, privacy focused DEX.
Okay, interesting.
It's bleeding edge, absolute bleeding edge the things that they do are just like the ideas are just so brilliant in how they sort of organize things, even to the extent like their code. I'm a huge Penumbra fanboy. Love that project.
Nice. Gonna definitely check it out. And again, links on the episode, on the show notes, in the show notes. We are a bit into Namada ourselves. We are participating now in the Shielded expedition as a validator of Namada. And Chris, in my opinion, also a fascinating guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Also big shout out and yeah, big mind. These last two questions are slightly more difficult, but still simple. So first one, what is one motivational thing that keeps Evan out of bed and interested in censorship resistance, chemistry, modular blockchains, and everything else? Is there anything like that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
What is the good motivational thing? I don't know. I like
it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just I just feel like I is very blessed to be put on this planet at all, let alone have the opportunities that I've had. So I just want to contribute back. And I think one of the highest leverage ways that I can do that now is to leverage my expertise that I've been very fortunate enough to develop.
It's actually a very good answer, man. It's very honest, at least, as opposed to some answers that sometimes I hear. What is the the last one? Give me one person or a character. It doesn't have to be a real character. It can be made up. It can be a developer. It can be somebody from your family. It can be a writer. It can be doesn't matter. Historical character, dead or alive, real or not real. I don't believe personally in gurus, so I never say guru or an idol. Somebody who has inspiration in a positive way on you throughout, not necessarily throughout the whole of your life, but sometimes it comes up again and you're like, well, yeah, I get it. That's a good thing to do. I would like to be more like that.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Anyone who tends to go against the status quo, there's been a lot of people. We all know Jay and Bucky. Ethan Buckman specifically has influenced me a lot over just like my like diving into Cosmos and figuring out things. I really look up to Ethan quite a bit.
Nice. That was the last one. Evan, thank you. I'm sorry that we went a little bit off topic, but I think it was a very interesting conversation. It's good not to stick to the protocol and actually hears people's opinion about why this is what I want the show to be. I want people to, to connect to the stories of those who made this world a possibility, a real possibility. Sorry. So thank you very much for your time and for your answers. Please don't hang up just yet. This is just for all our listeners. Thank you and see you next week.
This
Bye,
content
people.
was created by the Citizen Web3 Validator. You may support our work by delegating to any of our nodes.